Hello and welcome back to the Horror of It All movie podcast, video edition. I'm Eric. This is my next video in my videos for my top 10 favorite horror movies in each year of the 1980s. And we are up to 1982. So without further ado, I'll just get right into it. Number 10 is probably a surprise for some that it's way up to number 10. I do love this movie, but I don't think I'm as big as a fan of some people. Teach their own, right? But it is a great movie. I mean, come on. There's not even much that can be said about it. If you're a horror fan, you probably know it. It's one of the greatest remakes of all time. I'm talking about John Carpenter's The Thing. Really cool addition from Scream Factory. There was also an Arrow one. I weighed my pros and cons. Sometimes I get both. This is the one that seemed the best to me. But what can be said about this movie? I mean, they're kind of stuck in a remote Antarctic research station and discovers an alien buried in the snow for over 100,000 years. Soon unfrozen, the form-changing alien wreaks havoc and creates terror and becomes one of them. So it goes into like the dogs and it goes into like the people, and you don't know who's your friend anymore. It's one of those kind of movies. And one of the best scenes in it, in my opinion, other than the amazing effects, would probably be the blood scene with the hot wire and it's touching it to see who's who and stuff. It's like a scientific thing, and it's a great scene, a very, very tense scene. But it's The Thing, you know? What can be said about it? If you're a horror fan and haven't seen it, you're doing yourself a disservice by not seeing it. See the movie. Before I get into my number 9, I did want to mention there might be some misses, or not really misses, but I don't even know what to call it. But there could be some, especially in 1983 in my next one, that have different years that you'll see online and stuff. And I've done my research with the next one, as well as one that's in the 1983 one, that say different years. But usually I try to go by when it was released in the United States, especially with the 1983 one. I'm not going to go into that until then. But the one I'm talking about for my number 9 is Midnight. So underrated in my opinion. Finally came out, and it got from Severin, and it got a really good release. I was hoping the slipcase that they announced recently ended up coming with it, but it was a convention thing. But they did put it on their website. You can get it for like $5. If people that are slipcase people like I am. But this is a really, really good release. I'll read it, the synopsis real quick. A decade after co-writing Night of the Living Dead, writer-director John Russo gathered members of George Romero's Pittsburgh crews to film a new shocker fueled by equal parts grisly grindhouse jolts and 80s satanic panic. Fleeing her pervy alcoholic stepfather, a hitchhiking teen is abducted by a family of crazed homicidal rednecks for an ordeal of graphic butchery, shag carpet, and devil worshipping. John Amplis co-stars in this greasy, grimy, guilty pleasure. I don't have guilty pleasures personally. You gotta care what people think to have a guilty pleasure, honestly, but I understand what that is. Featuring gore effects by Tom Savini. Released in the U.S. markets as Backwoods Massacre and seized in the U.K. as a Section 3 video nasty. It's also now scanned in 4K from the negative of a long-rumored uncut version. I know I go into the releases as well. I do mine a little bit differently than just talk about the movie, but it's a really great movie. I was surprised by the people when it was released of how many people hadn't seen it. So that's definitely something. It's got great special features. It has an interview with John Russo. It has an interview with the producer, Samuel Sherman. It has an interview with John Amplis, and it has an interview with Tom Savini. Just just a great movie overall, man. And it does say 1980, but as I said, I think that's when it was made, and everything I found said it was released in 1982. So I could be wrong, but I'm going with 1982 for Midnight. My number 8 is a Christmas slasher. It's not really it's not a killer Santa Claus or anything, but I'm talking about The Dorm That Dripped Blood, aka Death Dorm. That's the title I go with. I mean, honestly, I think The Dorm That Dripped Blood is probably the best one, but I really like Death Dorm. Pranks is my least favorite. I think that's a terrible title. But it's a really good slasher from the 80s. This one also, as I said with year, says 1981, but everything else I find, it was released in 82. On the eve of Christmas vacation, a college dormitory stands dormant. The dark halls now vacant and unsafe. If you think you've seen this film fully uncut, think again. This is a great addition. I'm not sure if you can still get it because it is a 2011, but it's a really good slasher. I mean, it's made my top 10. It's number 8. So there's if I mention any certain scene, the effects are great. I really like the drill to the back of the head scene. Great fucking scene. But highly recommended slasher. My number 8, The Dorm That Dripped Blood. All right, another infamous one, I believe, for horror fans and grindhouse fans. My number 7 is Frank Hindenlauter's Basket Case. This is an amazing release as well. The Arrow put out. That's Belial right there. It's basically about these brothers who were Siamese twins, Dwayne and Belial. Belial is the deformed brother that was hooked to Belial's side. You figure out more in sequels of things that have happened. The sequels are pretty good too. I think the original is the best one, and I know some people will be like, "Duh, of course the original is the best one." I'm not always that guy. I do like sequels better sometimes. It's just the nature of the beast. But yeah. Basically, it's just about the two brothers that were separated and that were Siamese twins. And whenever basically Belial gets angry at his brother, or jealous or whatever, he goes on a killing spree. So it's definitely really good. I mean, you can't really see it, but you can get an idea. Look at these special features. This is a great release, but it's not just about releases. It's about Basket Case and my favorite movies of 1982. It is Frank Hindenlauter's debut film, I believe, and it's a shame he didn't make more movies. But between Frankenhooker and man, he's done some great movies. Brain Damage. If you haven't seen Basket Case and you like Joe Bob and have Shudder, if it's still on there, it depends. The movies go in and out depending on when you're watching this. It's definitely fun to watch with Joe Bob. I watched it with Joe Bob a couple of times because I've been a fan of him since his movie channel days. And no, I'm not quite that old. I've just watched horror since I was a super little kid. But Basket Case, my number 7. All right, almost halfway through. My number 6 is I don't think it needs much introduction. Amityville 2: The Possession. I'm never usually one to say, hey, you should watch a sequel before the original. You don't really need to with this. They don't really go together. I'm personally one that goes in order, but I'm a big Amityville fan. I know they all don't connect. I really love the Curse box set that Vinegar Syndrome put out. Some great stuff in there. Some of the few movies that I had seen before. Vinegar Syndrome is definitely great with me. As many movies as I've seen, they surprise me a lot of the time, and I somehow hadn't seen it. But that's a great box set. But anyway, we are talking about Amityville 2. The night of February 5th, 1976, George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children fled their home in Amityville, New York. they got out alive. Their living nightmare shocked audiences around the world in the Amityville Horror. But before them, another family lived in this house and were caught by the original evil. They weren't so lucky. This is their story. I highly recommend it. Burt Young, great performance in this movie as the abusive father. Diane Franklin is in it. She did a lot of 80s stuff. She was in Terror Vision. But yeah, definitely great. Now we are halfway through. My number 5 is the infamous movie that a lot of people don't like because Michael Myers isn't in it. And no, I'm not trying to be a dick, but that's such a silly reason. But I was like that as a kid, but I grew up and I realized how great of a movie this is. So many people, it's like almost equal to the people that love it, that hate it. It seems that way. Almost like other things in life, right? But I'm talking about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I just refer to it as Halloween, as Season of the Witch, sorry. But I fucking love this movie. I don't know how you can't love this movie other than the fact of Michael Myers isn't in it. But technically he's in it. He's on a TV when they're showing the movie, but it's not a Michael Myers movie. But one thing people got to remember, and they've heard things so many times and don't really care, that initially John Carpenter's idea was to make almost like an anthology series, and every movie was different. This one just failed because people didn't get it. Great performance by Tom Atkins. I love it. I love Season of the Witch. Obviously, it's one of them that I watch every year. But if you're kind of on the fence and aren't sure, it's basically about this mask-making company that Tom Atkins' character starts kind of... I don't want to say doing research on them, but trying to figure out what they're doing. He feels like something's off, and then you find out that it is, and it's these masks that when kids hear that song, and they watch the commercial with Tommy Lee Wallace's voice. It's almost time, kids. It basically, I don't know what exactly happens, but it kills them, and then like the mask like turns into bugs, or their head does. I'm not exactly sure what happens, but it kills the kids, and usually that's a taboo thing too. So that could be people's part of their, because it's killing kids. I don't know, but stop it. It's definitely like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers type stuff going on, but I love it. I am one of those people that love it. And I have no shame for it. Season of the Witch. My number 5 of 1982. My number 4. I have 2 releases for this one that I'm going to show. Because it's one that I couldn't pick, so I got both. I'm talking about... I go back and forth, but it's definitely sometimes my favorite Dario Argento movie. And my other one isn't necessarily Suspiria, but I'm talking about... Tenebrae. That's how I say it. I could be saying it wrong, but that's how I say it. Just a really good horror movie. Good slasher. Both of these releases are good. They have different stuff on it, but it is in my top, if not my favorite, Dario Argento movie. I've always loved Tenebrae. There's so much great things about it. If you like Italian movies, if you like Dario Argento. The synopsis is as follows. An American mystery author, Peter Neal, comes to Italy to promote his newest novel, Tenebrae. Unfortunately, a razor-welding serial killer is on the loose, taunting Neal and murdering those around him in gruesome fashion, just like the characters in his novel. As the mystery surrounding the killings spirals out of control, Neal investigates the crimes on his own, leading to a mind-bending, gender-twisting conclusion that will leave you breathless. Fucking Tenebrae. This is the Steelbook version that Arrow put out. Highly recommend that. If you're curious of one of my top favorites that kind of flip-flop. It's probably Tenebrae. Cat o' Nine Tails is close. I love Cat o' Nine Tails, and I love Deep Red. But if anybody's seen stuff on my channel, if I had to pick, I'm a Fulci guy. If I had to pick between those two, I know that's usually are you Fulci or are you Argento? I love Argento, but I'm a Fulci guy all day long. But I do highly recommend Tenebrae, my number 4 in my top 10 favorite movies of 1982. Number 3. This may fuck with the camera, I'm not sure. The lithograph or the holographic one. Blue Underground released this recently. They also put it on 4K. I did not need the 4K because I just got this. But speaking of Fulci, New York motherfucking Ripper. Top 5 Lucio Fulci all day long. It's another kind of giallo slasher. It's kind of equally giallo and equal slasher, depending on who you ask, really. But if you like Lucio Fulci, definitely check out New York Ripper. If you haven't seen it, I'll read the synopsis for you real quick. A blade wielding psychopath is on the loose. I know, I did kind of just say that with that, but giallo. With a lot of giallos, the whole razor thing. But there's some infamous scenes in this, man, like the cutting from the top and through the nipple and down. Yeah. But yeah, I watched this so many times when I got it. Anyway, turning the Big Apple bright red in the blood with blood. I'm going to start over. The blood-wielding psychopath is on the loose, turning the Big Apple bright red with the blood of beautiful young women. An NYPD detective, Fred Williams, follows the trail of butchery from the docks of Staten Island Ferry to the sex shows of Times Square. Each brutal murder becomes a satanic taunt in the city that never sleeps. The hunt is on for the killer that can't be stopped. If you see the movie, you know what I mean. If you haven't, you'll know what I mean. The New York motherfucking Ripper. Love it. Number 3 in my top 10. In my top 5 Fulcis, which I will do a top my favorite Fulcis in order of all of his horror movies. At some point, I have the list ready. This is obviously on it. All right, I'm almost done here. Number 2, another great release and amazing movie. It's a huge movie as a kid. We were talking briefly about George Romero's Crew, but number 2, Creepshow. It was kind of hard flip-flopping. I think Creepshow is probably my favorite of the year, but it's more of a... when I get to number 1, I'll tell you why. But Creepshow. I think it's probably the greatest anthology. I know that's a bold statement, but such a great fucking movie. So many people involved in it. George Romero directed it. Stephen King did the original screenplay. Father's Day. They're creeping up on you. The Crate is my favorite one. Stephen King's one is Jordy Verrill. Wonder what they'll give it for me up to college. I talked a lot about this on my brother's podcast, The Horror Inside, when we did our favorite movies, top 5 favorite horror movies of all time. I don't think Creepshow is on it, but it's in my top 10. I think it might have been. I don't think it's in top 5. I know it was in his though. Anyway, but if you haven't seen this and you're a horror fan, definitely check it out. It's one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. And if you like anthology horrors, it's, in my opinion, there's nothing better. You know, it's Creepshow. There's just great stories. There's just, I could do a whole episode about this, but trying to get through the top 10, and I will do one with this actually. I will have Adam on again soon, so maybe we'll do Creepshow. We haven't talked about it. But yeah, and there's so much great stuff on it for special features. There's a great documentary This one is probably hard to get now. I don't know. Maybe this version, maybe you can get just the movie. I'm not sure. If anybody's curious what that is, I keep my stickers. I've mentioned it on other ones. But yeah, I mean, it's Creepshow. I'm trying to think of anything else to say, really. I mean, it's comic book style. It goes into the comic and goes to different stories. Creepshow is a series now on Shudder. Definitely check that out. I like Creepshow 2. Creepshow 3, no thanks. But that has nothing to do with George Romero and Stephen King or anything that what is Something to Tide You Over, I believe is the title of it, with Ted Danson, and he gets buried, and Galen Ross is his, I guess, mistress. I don't know if it's his wife or what. I don't think it's his wife, because I think that's Leslie Nielsen's. I can't remember their names on the movie. Wife, and he buries them up to their neck on the beach, and the tide comes in, but they come back. That's a really good one. They're all great. They're all fucking great, in different ways. But The Crate is probably my favorite one. It's basically about this crate that is found at a college underneath stairs that haven't been looked. It's like a caged-in area that haven't been looked at in a long, long time, and there's a monster in the cage, and it gets let out and eats people, basically. But yeah, my number 2, Creepshow. Amazing movie. Yes, I will be doing an episode on Creepshow. There's also a documentary. I did mention that you can find. I don't think it's on this release, but you can get it separate. I should have grabbed it when I had this. Just Desserts, that's what it's called. Now, before my number 1, I'm going to go through a couple of honorable mentions. Nothing too in depth, but from 1982, and recommendations, honorable mentions, however you want to say it. I say honorable mentions. Incubus, you can get it like this from Vinegar Syndrome. It's a great supernatural movie. Love it. Another, I think, that doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. There's nothing too out of the ordinary about it, but if you like slashers, House on Sorority Row, really like that. This has been re-released, so you can get this on Blu-ray soon. Now, actually. Another Fulci, Manhattan Baby. Not one of his best, but I still recommend it. It's definitely some fun. A more under-the-radar movie that I discovered because of Screen Factory, Superstition. It's a really great one. Such great art. Yeah, I really like this movie. Highly recommend it. And another Vinegar Syndrome release that I hope gets a slip on one of their sales. Fingers crossed for Black Friday. I know a lot of people want to slip for it. Madman Mars. You can check this out with Joe Bob as well. Not sure if it's on there right now, as I said with Basket Case, but definitely I recommend Madman. And one more quick recommendation: Nightmare in a Damaged Brain, or Nightmares in a Damaged Brain. It's also known as Nightmare. It is, I believe, it's one of the most controversial slashers. I will say that, but I love it. Nightmares in a Damaged Brain. Check it out. This is the 88 Films version. It's been out for a while, but so I'm not sure if you can get it. This one is B, or at least it's supposed to be. I don't remember. I feel like this one was unlocked, even though it said B, but I could be wrong. If you haven't seen this is a bit under the radar as well. Check it out. Infamous, Grindhouse type movie. Nightmares in a Damaged Brain. Oh, and if you ever do dig into this and find out, Tom Savini did the effects, because it even says it in the credits. He did not do the effects. He denies it. I believe Tom Savini. He may have been a consultant or helped him one day, but they slapped his name on the movie to help sell, kind of like an Italian thing, basically, when they do sequel titles and stuff. But anyway, All right. My number one, again, Creepshow's probably my favorite, but if I'm doing a list, I gotta go with my boy Jason. Friday the 13th, Part 3. Not much can be said about this other than he gets his mask in this one. This is the 3D version. This came out of the box set, but you also can watch it in 2D. My favorite final girl is in it. Yeah. It's Friday the 13th, Part 3. I mean, there's not much that can be said about it. If you love Friday the 13th, this is seems like a lot of people's one of their favorites. It's definitely my number 2. When I just recently did my order ranking of Friday the 13th movies with my wife, and number 3 is number 2 for me. But yeah, it's Friday the 13th Part 3. I mean, if you've seen Friday the 13th, you like with Jason. I love this movie. I watch this movie all the time. It's one of my son's favorite movies. He loves watching it in 3D. Unfortunately, not real 3D. We've never seen it in real 3D because we don't have a 3D TV, but with the glasses. But as I said, my number 2 and number 1 are kind of could flip flop because technically, Creepshow is probably my favorite, but it's Jason, so it's almost like a nostalgic thing or whatever. I don't know, but this is my favorite movie of 1982, and I'd say maybe Creepshow's probably, in my opinion, the best. I'm not sure how to look at it. Anyway, number 1 is Friday the 13th Part 3. So anyway, I rambled a bit, as I do. Sorry about that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be looking out for future episodes because I'm doing every year in the 1980s, and I might go further. I might go to the 90s. I might go to the 70s. I might condense those a little bit more. I'm not sure. But 1983 is coming up. So I hope you enjoyed my top 10 favorite horror movies of 1982. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps out. And share. And yeah. So anyway. Thanks for watching. Until next time.